Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 19, another 7 curious interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. The first one's very exciting. It's a real lightsaber. Watch this. Now that is actually a real thing, it's not CGI, it does actually work like that, but it's clearly not made out of plasma, it's not going to cut you in half, but it's a physical prop. So this is going to be used at the Walt Disney World Resort's Star Wars themed Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel. So this will be used, I guess, for the shows or anybody, the extras that are walking around doing battles and things like that. So that was very cool. The internet was all a chatter how this might work, and there is a patent from 3 years ago that may give us a clue, or pretty much explains how it works. So if you get a big see-through tube, cut it down all the way down the middle, curl up the two halves of that, and stick an end cap on it, and then put LED up the middle, and then unfurl it with a small motor, a little bit like those retractable tape measures, but in reverse. That's pretty much how it works. So very cool, lots of chat on various forums about how this might work, but yeah, is this going to be available for you to buy, all those sorts of things, but there you go. Just thought it was really cool. I'm not a massive Star Wars fan, but even I can see that's cool. It's been about 2 weeks since the Apple iOS 14.5 update, and by far one of the biggest features, or these PRable features, was its privacy features. And this was where Apple will now flag any sites or apps that are tracking you from app to app across the internet. So if you go to your Apple settings and look in privacy, there is an option near the top where you can turn this on or off, allow apps to request to track. So this is sort of, it's off by default in as much as you cannot be tracked by default. The only thing you can do is you can allow apps to tell you that they're trying to track you and then say yes or no. So you can actually allow apps to track you if you really want, but by default this is now set to off, as in no tracking please. And the option is if you slide that little slider across, it will then pop up a little box, and it's nice to know, I've got this set to on for instance, it's nice to know which apps are trying to actually track you, even though I do say no. So anyway, so that's that. Flurry have come up with some early stats, so this is just halfway through week 2. And in the US, only average of 4% of people actually want to allow people to track them, which is fairly obvious, isn't it really? Worldwide it's 11%, there or thereabouts. It's going up slightly, 1% here and there, but I think that's only as people start to actually switch it on so that they can see if it is actually working or not, which is one of the big problems I'm hearing on the internet. Is like, I haven't seen this in 2 weeks. I've had no pop-ups whatsoever, and lots of people are thinking, is this working? So it may well not be for a lot of people, but nobody's really sure why. So it may be because you've visited the site before, this has been turned off, and if you've actively then turned it on, you've already sent your preferences to that website. So what this is doing in the background, by the way, is it's if you do actually set this to on and you don't mind being tracked, it's sending your device ID to the advertisers, so they know what you've done on this site because they've got your device ID. If you pop onto another site and they give you your device ID away as well, they can then be correlated where you're going, what you're doing across sites, and they can build up a pattern of who you are, and that's how they advertise to you. So there you go. Obviously this is not great for the likes of Facebook and Google because they're relying on this sort of stuff to give accurate and therefore more profitable advertising. That said, Twitter tip jar. So this is launched. This is launched on for certain people. I've had a good look around Twitter. I've not found a single person I follow who's got one of these. However, it's a rollout, so that's how this works, I guess. So if you do like somebody on Twitter and you'd like to give them some cash, a little bit like you do on Twitch or Patreon, for instance, then you can go over to their profile settings, and along the top you'll see a little cash icon there. You can click on that, and then you have 5 ways to pay, including like Patreon, for instance, and Cash App. And yeah, you can go and donate to them, so that is neat. So very similar to what happens on Twitch, etc. Now it didn't go particularly smoothly all the way through, so if you paid with PayPal, for instance, then whoever you donated to, if you didn't click exactly the right setting, they actually got a receipt from you which actually had your name and address on it. So they had your private address or your registered PayPal address. So even if you thought somebody's stuff was great, you sent them a dollar or a pound, they would also receive your private address, which was not great. So that turns out it is actually, you can actually turn that off, in that you need to donate as friends and family, not as sort of goods and services. So I think Twitter have now added a pop-up or some sort of note to make sure that you know that, or it may be PayPal, I'm not really sure. However, so it wasn't plain sailing. There was quite a lot of kind of hang on a minute, there's a big privacy flaw in this tip jar, but that's why. So if you do pay with PayPal, pay attention. Brembo, the brakes people. So Brembo make high-end brakes. I guess that's how I describe them. Cars, bikes, trucks, whatever it is. So they are 60 years old, and they now have this, I guess, demo, the Sessanta, the new G60, which is 60 in Italian. So obviously that's why they're celebrating their 60th. But it's based on the very original caliper system, which they've upgraded with connected app and stuff, and lights especially. So what you do is you've got a couple of options. You can set the lights to the colour of your motorcycle, which will match it perfectly. But what you also do is you have a lot of other things as well. It will, if you're in a car park, for instance, you can make it flash so you know where your bike is, but it does other things, like if your brakes are overheating, if they need changing, if there's any issues with them, they can actually alert you to that through the colours. So there you go. So kind of neat, but therefore thinking, well, all the other things that are really important on your car that you should really have a better connection with. I know it says in your highway code that you should go and check the tyres of your car every time you go out. You should check the washer bottle, all those sorts of things. I'm fairly sure that we're not doing that. So I thought it was really interesting that it's now having more of a physical connection with a very important part of a vehicle. There you go. New brakes, who'd have thought? You know, lots of gags I could have said, stop press, breaking news, etc. I wouldn't do that. Very exciting news from CRISPR. So CRISPR, I've been following CRISPR for years and years. I still a little note, but it's basically clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. There you go, I think that was CRISPR. So CRISPR, what does that really mean? So CRISPR is a way of gene editing. If you don't know what CRISPR is, if you do, please bear with me, it'll only be 30 seconds. But what CRISPR does is it essentially uses the immune response of the body to go and attack things. So if you've had a cold before, your body has an immune response to that cold, and next time it sees the cold stuff getting into your body, it will send out little things to go and kill the cold, and it snips it up, snips the DNA of the molecules of the cold. So that's all kind of cool. So what you can do is, if you know there's another piece of DNA that you actively want to go and modify, you can sort of dope the immune system to thinking that that's an invading thing. You can then go and send out these little responses, and they can go and snip up that thing. So in this case, if you're, for instance, looking at muscular dystrophy, you can find the dystrophin protein that isn't being created. So there's a gene that makes dystrophin, which kind of makes the muscles work. And if you don't have the dystrophin, your muscles don't work, which is muscular dystrophy. So if you do create the dystrophin, awesome. However, the gene doesn't do it. So what you do is you dope the body to think that the dystrophin part, the creator part, is the thing that needs fixing. So you send over some things, you start snipping around, and lo and behold, it starts working again. You essentially can snip out the stop signals, and then all of a sudden it starts working again. So they've tried this in mice, and they've had mice who have been basically bred with muscular dystrophy, and they've actually managed to not only cure muscular dystrophy but also regenerate the muscles. 50% of all the muscles are regenerated. So that is absolutely spectacular. Now this is really research on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which primarily acts it's only for boys, and also is horrendous because it acts very early on in life as well. So the prognosis, if you have muscular dystrophy or Duchenne muscular dystrophy, is not great. It's not great anyway, but it's even worse for Duchenne. So this is really, really good news, really positive news. This has been on the horizon for a while for many illnesses as well. It's just great that they've actually got some really positive. So shout out to the University of Texas for this. It's not ready for humans yet, but certainly this is a massive step forward. So well done to CRISPR, and well done to the University of Texas. Self-flying drones have now achieved a milestone, which is level 4 autonomy. So level 4 autonomy, as with cars, have 5 levels of autonomy. Fourth is actually pretty cool, which is it can just do all its own stuff on its own. It doesn't need any human contact whatsoever. So what you do is well, broadly speaking, you just tell it where you want it to play. You draw a box essentially around a physical space, and it just goes and finds its way around. So in this case, it's exploring a cave complex, and what you've asked it to do is just go along, use its LiDAR sensors to map out the place, and come back with a 3D model. Now you can equally set this to fly over a woodland or in a shopping centre, or an outdoor space looking for heat maps or signatures from a lost person. You can also use it for oil exploration. You can use it for all sorts of stuff. So that's pretty cool. So a level 4 automation in drones is here. Obviously the next step with this is not level 5 but level 4B and C, and level 4B is with automated swarms of drones. So all of a sudden it gets quite sinister. You've got a swarm of drones that are all doing their own thing with no human input. They're looking for something and they'll do whatever they can to go and find it. That starts to get a little bit like a movie that you don't really want to go and see. There you go. And finally, we have this artwork does not exist. So this is very similar to the website this person does not exist. If you don't know that website, please go and type it in. It's good fun. You can create human faces on the fly. So this one has been fed lots of artwork, and this is using generated adversarial networks, which essentially say ingest lots of art, will show you lots of art, and all it keeps doing is it keeps generating art until it's, broadly speaking, as good as, if not better than, the original. So it basically uses the originals as an adversary, which is where adversarial comes from. So what this does, it's been fed lots of artworks, and it can just generate art on the fly. So each one of these was me just clicking refresh on the browser on the website and just generating new pieces of art. So if you need some art for your chain of low-cost motels, then this is probably where you're going to get it from. Likewise, if you just want something to put in the downstairs loo, then you can do that as well. There you go. I thought that there's two sort of interesting things about this one that really caught my eye. Was one that there's, this is interesting, generating art, and each one was Bibles and NFT. Then what a great business model. And the second one was really about the theatrical nature of what's going on here. Is as these are being generated, you are the first human being ever to have witnessed that piece of art. So I thought that was actually quite artistic in its own way. So there you go. This artwork does not exist.com. And with that, we are done. Thank you very much, and hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week.